Good morning, everybody among the participants. I'm going to take a little bit of time to tell you a little bit about Zoom video communications and also about best practice for remote working. We've really, I think, all seen a tremendous change in the way that we do things in the past few weeks. And I really want to try and unpack some of what we've been seeing and talk to you a little bit about how to get the best out of video communications. So, as all good technology people, I'm going to just share my screen and just show you a couple of slides to give you some idea about how we go about this. So just give me 1 second. Now, in order to make this a valuable session, please make it as interactive as you can. Do type in the chat box and do type in the Q&A if you want to ask any question or discuss any matters while we're here. So I'll tell you a little bit about Zoom first of all, so you know where we come from. So Zoom as a company has come to prominence greatly in the past couple of months, but we've been around for quite a long time. We've been around since about 2011, and the founders of Zoom, particularly our CEO, Eric Wan, have actually been in video communications and collaboration since before that, as they were some of the founding developers of WebEx, which was sold to Cisco more than about a decade ago. So Zoom was founded in 2011, and our sole purpose was to provide frictionless video communications. And we've been doing this quite successfully, growing at 100% per year. We IPO'd just a couple of years ago, and have been growing since then about 100%. So the idea was catching on greatly. And people in some types of businesses like technology, such as myself, have been very used to this for a very long period of time. So what's remote working all about? So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to tell you a bit about Zoom, and I'm going to tell you some best practices and how to get the most out of this medium for people to get them to work together effectively. What are you got to look at when you're talking about remote working, as well as obviously collaboration, video, Zoom video, and similar? There's many other things which are all part of your remote working landscape, if you like. So you've got to take into account how many employees and locations you've got. What are you trying to replace? Do you have dispersed teams? Do you have international teams? What are the costs and budgeting for your employee travel? How much money will you save in that? Many aspects of your working landscape you have to take into consideration in order to really look at the essence of what you're going to get out of remote working. So what are the benefits of remote working? I'm going to talk about the benefits to begin with, do a little bit of a plug for Zoom at the same time, but then I'm going to get into some of the best practices. So one of the benefits is improved collaboration, productivity, supports a flexible work schedule, builds trust among remote workers, reduces meeting times because you don't have to transit in between meeting, and removes silos because people who maybe work in different office locations all of a sudden can network much more strongly together. All of these things are among the benefits that remote working gives you as an organization. Really important to try and take advantage of these and to change the way you do things, as well as the technology that you use. I'm just going to jump into a different document to frame the next part of my discussion with you as well. So it's very important, like I said, that you use the aspects of remote working in a manner which benefits you the most in terms of getting the best out of the fact that you have your employees available. Now, all of us know there's some aspects which are self-evident. For example, the fact that you don't have to commute. That's a vitally important aspect. Saves a lot of time every day, saves many, many hours, and so on. We, in fact, put out a document which I can share with you, which I'll show. Just one second. So we've put out a document which I can, in fact, share with you, which shows some of the best practices. And we put this out because from our perspective, it's not only about using our technology, it's about establishing the best practices, establishing a remote culture, and so on. I'll just give you some of the ideas. I'll skim through this as well. Now, first thing first, Mohammed, Shahid, and Salman, video. It's all about video. So if you want to establish a remote practicing culture, you need to switch on video. This is really important. It creates that sense of engagement with the person at the other side. When you're looking at a screen which has, you know, black boxes with writing inside them, you don't get the same engagement with the individuals as when you see them. Now, what that means is preparing where you are. So for example, at Zoom, our protocol is 9 times out of 10 people switch video on. And even when video is switched off, they've got the settings such as it shows their picture, which creates a sense of engagement. But 9 times out of 10 people switch on video. Have good headset, good webcam, or speakers or microphone and so on. So pay attention to the lighting, the background, the headset, and so on. Utilize virtual backgrounds if, like me, you've got clutter behind you. Share screens and secure your meetings as well. I talk about security because this is something which has come up a lot recently. Security is very important, but it's mainly self-defined. You know, whether you use waiting room features, whether you lock meetings in order to present the people around you with a more established, secure environment or so on. Don't forget that remote working is like working in the office. If you're sat in a meeting room, you can have the door open or you can have the door closed. If you have the door open, other people can walk in the same way as if you're sat in a coffee bar with a colleague. You can have a secure environment or you can have a less secure environment. Depending on the type of meeting you're conducting, that will make a difference. So, other things. Get dressed. I know this seems self-evident, but it's the old newsreaders adage. Get yourself dressed as if you would go to work. It puts you in the right mindset and also presents the right engagement with your colleagues. I know this seems a little bit, you know, personal, but it is important in the same way as when you go to the office. Have a routine around the remote working. I remote work between, you know, whenever, whether that be 9 o'clock and 6 o'clock or 9 o'clock and 5 o'clock, but have a routine, you know, get up at a certain hour, in normal circumstances to have stretch breaks, meal breaks, whatever you need to have. But build in a routine as if you're in the office. Get up and walk around and have a comfortable chair to use. I found myself in the early days of lockdown literally doing more than a dozen meetings a day. And then I'd get up at the end of the day and my back would be shaped by the chair I'd been sitting in. Then I realized I needed to break a 10-minute gap between meetings and get up and walk around. Just walk around, stretch, walk around, you know, do anything, you know, wash the dishes, chat to somebody else in my location, or just, you know, do anything. Just do anything to be physically distracting from sitting behind a chair. Guarding your space is important. If you have other members of the family and so on, it's important that the space that you work is isolated to some degree so that you can guard it so you can make sure that it gives you the work type environment. As I said, minimize distractions, take breaks. Very important. Just as in the office, not every meeting is work. You walk across and chat with colleagues, do the same. Build into your agenda team connections. You know, I want to have a chit chat with Salman, I want to talk to Hamad Shahid, and we're just going to talk about yesterday as, you know, something we watched on television or whatever it might be. Very important as well. These kind of aspects allow you to build a work day that works for you. And this is very important indeed. So just to recap briefly, physical well-being, walk around, stretch around, put gaps into your day, make sure that you've got the security which is suitable for your meeting. Not all meetings need the same security, incidentally. Some you don't mind if people drop in, others you do mind if people drop in. So create a setup which is proportional to what you want to achieve in that respect. It's very important, I think, to take an opportunity out of this really difficult situation we find ourselves in. If you look at an average workforce, I see we have 21 participants. If these were 21 people who are heading into the office or heading into, let's say, a hotel or a seminar location or something like that, it's approximately 21 hours work, which is 2 working days to get all those people in between the time it takes, you know, to get yourself ready, get in your car, not least the hydrocarbons burn, the parking time, etc., etc. All of that you're saving. That has significant advantages, and also for people who have childcare and so on, that's there. So capitalize on those advantages, but do feel that you can put in place aspects of the business which allow you to gain an advantage from the situation that you're in. I'll go back to my slide deck. Okay. I'm wondering, from everybody who's out there at the moment, which of you, I mean, you can just tap in the chat box, baby, which of you, on balance, would like to maintain an aspect of remote working even after this period, this difficult period of COVID diminishes or ends? Which of you feel that remote working has given you aspects of a work-life balance which you appreciate? I'm looking at the chat box to see who's responding. Nobody yet. Okay, this is, incidentally, this is the chat box here. So do type here if you've got anything to say. Okay. Okay, we were talking about global communications trends. So improving the user experience is a very important thing. So obviously, for the remote working to work, you need to put in place tools, and you need to put in place the capabilities for good engagement. I talked about good microphones. I talked about good cameras. You know, Logitech and others make some fantastic cameras. A little bit hard to find at the moment, but under normal circumstances are really easy to get hold of. These are very important, comfortable chairs. One thing which I'm going to throw out to the bosses out there in the audience is that think about giving people allowances to buy, or in fact purchasing for them, some of the tools that they need for effective home working. And I'll give you an idea of chairs. I don't know if anybody is familiar with Herman Miller. They make office chairs. You see them in many offices. They're very expensive chairs. So these chairs cost $1,000, whereas saying that everybody needs to buy themselves a $1,000 Herman Miller chair, you would be surprised how much even normal office chairs, the type you sit at your desk at, cost. Many people don't have chairs like that at home. And I've certainly seen employers who are a little bit reticent to get chairs for employees. But when you look in an office environment, you spend a lot of money, whether it be on cooling, lighting, heating, lighting the car park, etc., in order to enhance people's sense of well-being in the office. I think it's worth giving a thought to putting together similar aspects of technology to allow people to have better remote working experiences. So good chairs, maybe allowances, maybe purchasing chairs for employees, good microphones, good cameras, good equipment, so that they can create some of the aspects of seeing video communications as mission critical. So previously speaking, there used to be loads and loads of tools out there, and the collaboration tools have grown and grown. There are tools which are based on video, such as ourselves, tools which are better known for chat, such as Slack, and so on and so forth. One of the good things which Zoom brings to the party is we've brought a uniform platform which can encompass many of the benefits in a frictionless video-first united communications platform. Telling you more things to do with remote working. So webinars, what we're using today, great tool for talking to larger audiences. Obviously, you've got meetings, you've got chat as a tool open on people's desktops, where you can share documents, you can share typing, etc. The use of integrated phone products, so the potential to integrate telephony products within the video can also make things even better. So if you're the kind of employee who needs to take inbound calls, these can be integrated within the video communications platform, such as Zoom. Additionally, if you're using applications in your business, so for example, you have a workflow to do with interviewing employees, etc., you can also build that in as well. So we do more than meetings with Zoom, as you can imagine. We conduct customer engagement, we conduct hiring, sales demos, professional services, and so on. Think of building parts of your core business process. Think of building remote alternatives within. I'll give you an example. We're working with a company here in the United Arab Emirates that does the scheduling of doctors' appointments. So they're now building a new tool which will stay permanently, which allows doctors to do remote scheduling, which is really convenient for patients. It has, of course, major healthcare benefits because people don't have to go to the surgery, and clearly there's a contagion benefit in that per se. But beyond that, it allows patients who need short consultations with their doctors. How annoying is it when you have to go see a doctor and you just for a quick chat, and that quick chat involves probably an hour and a half of going there, taking a seat, coming back, etc. All of that can be modified in terms of a process using remote procedures. You can do the same for external presentations, town halls, training. You can assist customers. If you're in a customer service environment, when you're talking to people on the phone and you have classical angry customer, how much more engaging is it if, just like in a showroom, you can actually see them? We've always imagined this to be difficult to do. The idea of, when you're speaking to Salat or Do or Emirates Airlines, that the person you spend time with on the phone, you actually see. It's something which was not considered much, but just imagine how much more engaging that would make you as an organization if your customers saw you rather than just spoke to you on the phone. So versatility, obviously you can use phones, laptops, and so on and so forth. I want to particularly jump in to, I'm not going to go into all these quite detailed slides. I'm going to jump in and tell you about Zoom Rooms. Just let me take a second. These are something which you should consider as well, particularly for senior executives or for environments where you want to have a slightly more engaging presence. Basically, what these are is, I'm just getting the slides up. So, any questions, anybody? No questions? Is it too early in the morning for Ramadan? Yes. There you go. These are a very important thing, which I'd like to tell you about. So we always have considered conference and meeting room solutions as being something for the office, something big and complex, something costly, which are used for conference rooms and meetings rooms in an office location. Increasingly, companies, a whole series of companies from Bose to Neat to Logitech to i10 and so on, are coming up with solutions which are home office appropriate. So, for example, Bose are coming up with a video bar. They're coming up with special headphones, Series 700s headphones, which integrate directly with products like Zoom. i10 are coming up with a 27-inch touchscreen monitor, which can allow you to have video conferencing, Zoom particularly, capabilities, which you can put in a sitting room, in a home office, and something like that, which can give you a different sort of perspective to that which you get normally with your laptop and webcam, which can also allow your ability to sit down, get up, and utilize the equipment different in terms of the posture and so on that you put in place. So all of that is there as well. And what I would say is, in the market, there are more and more tools like that. I think I have a picture of this is one of the setups that Logitech use, but this setup can be shrunk to any size. For training rooms, huddle rooms, a huddle room can be a home room, and so on, with calendar integration and so on. So all of these things can be put in place in that respect. Again, potentially if you have spare rooms or if you have seating areas, it can also allow you to use video conferencing, Zoom, for example, much more interactively for your social video meetings that you conduct during the day. So I've got a couple of questions here from Nadine. I think home working is more productive, but work-life balance. I speak to a lot of people. It was hard, and that balance was hard to, maybe because of the COVID special time. Okay, that's interesting. Yes. So it's interesting to see that. I hear that from a lot of people, that yes, these are special times. Working from home is more productive. I really wonder, as I said, I've been polling a lot of people I talk to regularly. Quite a lot of people are seeing that. But I think to get the most out of it, as I said, you've really got to engage as much as possible. Use video, don't be shy. The reason why people don't switch on video is because maybe they haven't prepared themselves visually for engaging with colleagues. Do so. It takes a few minutes extra, but it's really important. And I hear another one. Do I think that the pandemic will push organizations to want to revolutionize and implement remote working on a much larger scale, or was it business as usual? I think it'll be a blend of both. So my gut feeling is that the pandemic, obviously, is very distressing, very sad, and so on. A couple of things observations have come out of it. Certainly, there's a lot of observations in terms of the environment. I can tell you, in my normal work day, I conduct far more car journeys than I should. I go and see people, and really, I could have done it on the phone, or I could have done it on a video conference, particularly on a video conference. Under normal circumstances, I couldn't ask for a video conference because, in business ethics terms, it comes across as lazy. If you say to somebody who's a 30-minute or 20-minute drive from you, shall we do a video call instead of meeting? Under normal circumstances, they'll see you as odd, whereas quite often a video call would have been not only enough, would have been very productive. I can show you slides, I can switch between slides, which I couldn't do normally if I was sitting at my desk. It would be clumsy and cumbersome to do so. So what you do differently during this period to keep Zoom team engaged, to maintain the sense of loyalty to the company. So we do a lot of things. We do a lot of non-business meetings. So for us, the tool is not only for conducting business meetings. We have stretching activities. We have coffee drop-ins. We have colleagues who, might grab a bite together, where literally they, two people who would normally be sitting eating a sandwich, typing on their keyboard, stop typing from their keyboard and, do that together. Having those coffee drop-ins, having engagement via that. We've had some fun things done as well. I'm sure you've read. So take the time to do stuff like that. I mean, some of it you may think at first glance is a bit weird. And the concept of a drop-in, I think, is really important as well. So we have lots of colleagues who isolate 30 minutes every day, where it's a simple drop-in. Anybody can drop in and talk and chat. And it's not necessarily a work discussion. It could be a work discussion, but it's a walk-in session, open door. So these type of things keep people engaged and so on. All really, really important. Personal development and courses is vitally important as well. Use it as a great chance to do spot trainings. One of the things very difficult to do in a normal work environment is to do 10-minute trainings or 15-minute quick step-out training sessions, because it takes people too long. If you want to get people into a room for 15 minutes for a quick pep talk or quick training, it's difficult to do because it takes them 10 minutes to gather and then 10 minutes to disperse at the end. So, yeah, you can do that, put in these 15-minute slots in their diary. They'll be sat at their desk. They've got a meeting before, they've got a meeting afterwards. Those are very important. And from an HR perspective, so in terms of KPIs, in terms of business productivity, depending on what your business is, if you're a salesperson, sales calls, engagement with customers, if you're in different other aspects of the business, you can also build KPIs too. And from an HR person's perspective, one of the things which is very important, I think, is to make sure that the fact that I'm sat at home doesn't change my overall respect for other people and other people's overall respect for my working hours and working aspects. I work from 9 till 5, for example, and I take a break, and I take a couple of other breaks during the day. Got to respect it. The fact that you're at home and I know you're there shouldn't be an excuse for everybody sort of to invade everybody else's space. And I think that's very important indeed. And we do that. So use the tool, but do respect each other's space as well. I think it's very important indeed. In terms of security, I'm going to address this because a lot of people, it's been a lot in the news. There was a lot of negative, if you like, publicity about Zoom. Much of it was really kind of generic to do with video conferencing. Security, very important to be aware of all the security tools available to you within your product. And as we mentioned in that brochure, which I'm going to send out to everybody, locking rooms is important. So if I'm going to have a huddle with somebody, so always have a password, that goes without saying. But even with a password, as you realize, people pass passwords to each other. So, you know, I could have given the password to Salman, and he could have, you know, somebody else could have asked, hey, are you meeting Sam? Yes. Oh, okay. Can you send me the meeting request? I'm going to join you. And he sends the meeting request unwittingly, unknowing that I had a very serious topic to discuss with him. I didn't want any other attendees. So what I will do then is I will lock the room after Salman enters so nobody else can enter, even if they have the password. So you've got all those aspects of privacy that you can build, and do use them because these aspects will allow the meeting to gain the kind of sense and feeling that you need. If it's an open meeting, then you want it to be an open meeting. You want people to drop in, and you'll have, you know, a regular password everybody's got access to. You've also got aspects in terms of chat. You know, if you don't want people to talk to each other, you can easily disable the chat bar. You can disable the chat bar from other people, etc., etc. The protocol of recording, you know, again, in Zoom and probably in others, if you switch recording on, everybody knows it, it announces it to everybody, and in Zoom, it gives anybody the opportunity to drop if they don't want to be recorded. So do use that usefully. I often use it when people are telling me things that I would normally take notes. I ask their permission. I say, do you mind, you're telling me something quite detailed? Normally I would take notes. Do you mind if I just record for a couple of minutes while you give me all of those details? Super useful. Also super useful to share with others. So if I'm talking again to Muhammad or to anybody else, then again, it allows me to share those notes, but do maintain a protocol with that, which respects people's privacy. So when we get back to normal, I'm going to read out the questions. When things get back to normal, or some degree of normal, how do you see video communications? I think, and I'd love to have a poll. I'm not the host here, so I can't set up a poll, but maybe one of the hosts can. How many people think that, you know, video communications and remote working will play a bigger role? I think it will. I think some people, you know, we probably all would love to get back into the office to see our colleagues and, you know, physically sit down and have a coffee. I'm sure I'm looking forward to it, as I'm sure you are too. But I think spending more time on video communications, a lot of us have found very productive. And so, yes, I think it will. It will greatly gain. As I said, I do think some of the things have to be taken into account: the chairs, the corners, and so on that we all use. Some of these have to become part of our philosophy in terms of the way we work. The distancing from the screen, the distance from cameras. I mean, I'll give you a few pointers. You know, a lot of us use laptops. Laptop has a certain posture associated with it. You're kind of bending down a little bit and so on. Maybe think about if your company can get you screens so you can look in a straight line as opposed to looking down, or else risers which can lift your laptop up a little bit so that you can type on a higher keyboard and so on. Think about all of these things in a matter of postures. Older people like me, you know, my back and my neck hurts quicker than most. So I realize that I need to straighten my posture. Younger people are more resilient from that point of view, but over time it does get to you. Do we have any training courses for personal development? Yes. I mean, we have a lot of resources at Zoom. I'll go back to that brochure which I was showing. I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to bug you with very detailed, hang on, let me get this. I'm just making it a little bit bigger. Hang on. Yes, here we are. As you can see, screen sharing is pretty simple. So if we go back to the best practices in terms of what you're using, so we've talked about securing, we've talked about virtual backgrounds, getting dressed, guarding your space, mitigating distractions, connecting with your team, all of these things. So we've talked about connecting with your team. Don't underestimate the emotional boost that you get from connecting with your normal work crew. It's very important, you know, and as senior members of staff, if there are senior members of staff here in this webinar, taking a couple of minutes with maybe more junior members of staff can be a tremendous boost for them during the working day. You know, give them a floating 5 minutes there, just like to give you a quick chat. It's brilliant because you can do lots of them. You know, you can put aside 1 hour to touch base with 20 people for 5 minutes each. It's absolutely wonderful in terms of giving people a boost. You can only do that remote. If you do it in your office with people walking in every 5 minutes, it becomes, you know, something of a difficult scenario, and it's a bit commotional. Whereas when you do it with video, you can do it very slickly indeed. In terms of security, let me address the security questions people using Zoom. So first of all, Zoom became very popular. As you know, we got up to 300 million participants using it from approximately 10 million. So it went through the roof in terms of popularity over the past 3 months. So, and Zoom gained its lead in the market because it's great and easy to use. We put a lot of money and a lot of time into the human engagement part of it. Zoom has one of the top net promoter scores of any product, higher than Apple. We have a 72 net promoter score. Because it's so easy to use, because the video quality is great, because we have our own dedicated video network, because of all of these things, Zoom became very popular. As such, the name Zoom is often used in the media to as an analogy or as a representation of video conferencing communications tools. So many of the criticisms of the security points were brought up were generic, but they were you know, labeled to Zoom. Zoom bombing, for example, is not something which can only happen on Zoom. But the name Zoom bombing was coined, and that was overwhelmingly what concerned people about security. And Zoom bombing is all about people stepping in to other people's meetings and being potentially disruptive. Now, the thing you've got to understand is that video conferencing is a meeting room method of communicating and meeting up. It's a room which people can join. So the security which you set up has to reflect the meeting you're having, and also the audience and the trustworthiness of the audience. You know, if you've got a very broad, very, you know, trustworthy audience, then, you know, that's one thing. Once you got into schools environments, it's slightly different because obviously you're dealing with a different type of audience, and so you need different precautions. You need to lock the room. You need to use the waiting room feature to let people in, etc. So you've got many aspects which you want to do. When would you not want to use the waiting room feature? For example, let's say in something like this, you really don't want to be letting people in one by one. So while you're talking, in case somebody's a couple of minutes late, you keep having to click them in. That's not what you want in a broad commercial webinar or a broad meeting scenario. In a webinar scenario, you don't want that. So what I'm gonna do now is, and furthermore, in terms of other aspects of security, we enhance greatly the security of Zoom in terms of the data sovereignty, so you can switch off data centers and data areas, and also the encryption, which was within the product. There was encryption, we enhanced it. Now that is what somebody's at the door, which happens when you're working from home. Just 1 second, I do. So there you go. That's one live aspect of working from home. People ring the doorbell. So yes. So in terms of security, I can reassure you we've done a lot. I'm going to put you up a couple of slides, a security slide, to just give you some idea of aspects of security which we addressed. I'm sort of jumping all over the place. I hope it's easy to follow. Yes. So in terms of security, I'm just going to give you, so these were the main security concerns which were raised. We've addressed them all, basically. Attention tracking, this was a feature that we had, which was in place, which helped you have an idea if people were paying attention, if they were using other windows on their laptops. We thought it was a really useful feature because it means you could somehow gauge engagement. Obviously, if you're talking to people, you don't want them to be doing other stuff at the same time. You want to really have a reflection of a meeting environment, just like when you're sat in a meeting. It received a lot of bad publicity. People regarded it as an invasion of privacy, so we disabled it. On the 16th, so Vice News ran an article saying Zoom tells your boss if you're not paying attention. We got criticized, feature removed. In terms of Zoom bombing, we've put out lots of best security practices. We've also moved the security tab, you can see it, to the front screen. So you no longer have to go into settings to really tighten up your security. And we've also made lots of stuff like long passwords and so on, and I'll show you that in a second. They've now become standard. Facebook SDK, we were criticized for logging via Facebook. It's a convenient feature some people liked. Facebook has a specific wrap. We disabled it. End-to-end encryption, we were criticized for. We clarified what our encryption was. It's encryption in transit. We've also upped our encryption a few days ago. Again, we reacted extremely quickly. We had 2 minor bugs we fixed, and the routing we fixed as well. So we fixed the routing. You can now switch off. I'll show you that. You can now switch off data centers if you're a bank or you're something like that. You can now, with Zoom, select which data centers you want to have active within your Zoom instance, excluding your home data center, which you can't switch off. So very quickly, we updated the client in the space of about a week 3 times. So now the security button is on the front. There it is. You can allow participants to share screen or not. Obviously, if you're in a classroom environment, you don't want to allow the pupils to share their screens potentially. You can freeze out people from chat. You can lock the waiting room. You can stop people from renaming themselves. That's a key security feature. So at the moment, Shahid and Salman are not authenticated because I don't see their names written in small print in the bottom left. You do in my case, which means I am authenticated. I'm not the host, but the host can restrict such that only authenticated users can use the tool. So that stops anybody who doesn't log in through a client, additional level of security. You can have added privacy. In that respect, passwords are on by default. Renaming of contacts can be stopped. Waiting room by default. File sharing can be stopped. Then we added a couple of days later a bunch of other things that prevents previewed messages and so on. We removed, but then we returned the sharing of files and file integrations with Google Drive. Now our meeting passwords are 11 digits. We've also removed, if you've noticed, from the front screen, the meeting ID never appears. Famously, Boris Johnson tweeted a picture of a cabinet meeting which had the meeting ID on the top of it. So theoretically, people could enter, although they did have a password, so they couldn't. The admin passwords have become very long and complicated, again, which is good. Cloud sharing, so this meeting is being recorded if it's being shared on the cloud. This can be also saved and shared using a complex password only. So cloud recordings, complex passwords. Most importantly for many people, as part of our 90-day, we have now within your settings, you see that screen on the right where you can select data centers or deselect data centers. So you can untick China, it is actually unticked by default. You can untick other parts of the world too. So if you're concerned that your data doesn't go to certain parts of the world, then you can stop that. It's unique to Zoom, this feature. So this data routing, there you go. That shows you the bandwidth and statistics, and you can exclude that data routing. So those are some of the security features just to answer the question which Dina had written in place and so on. So what we've tried to do overall as Zoom is put in place best in practice series of security features to make people feel comfortable. Like any digital communication tools, you know, there's stuff you've got to do, have good passwords and so on. But we've gone the extra mile in making sure that users, even users who may not be very familiar with these kind of systems, are comfortable in that regard. And that's very important indeed. So I've tried to talk as far across as many aspects as possible, and you know, I've answered some of the questions, and thank you very much for those questions indeed. I know it's going to be a long day, and what I'm going to type for you all in the chat box here is my details, and do please contact me if you've got any questions, would like to contact us, want me to send you any documents. We've got a lot of documents on best practices and so on, which can be used by different parts of the business, and I'm happy just to send them across to you. That's my email, and that's my number. Yes, I still use a phone, not only Zoom all the time. So please do reach out as well. I would also point out to those of you with children at school that we have removed the 40-minute limit for the United Arab Emirates for K-12 schools. So any schools who want to use Zoom with that limit enabled, disabled, can do, which means you can use the free product, but keep, you know, you don't have to stop the meeting at 40 minutes. And that's for K-12 schools in the United, so that's primary and secondary schools in the United Arab Emirates. We've got a form they fill online, and basically then the licenses have that limit, that restriction lifted. So do call out, do drop me a line if anybody wants to avail that for, you know, their children's schools, or if you work in the education sector yourself. So thank you very much indeed.
Hi, Sam. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, great to speak to you all.
Yep, likewise. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being with us, Sam. I just wanted to thank you in person and actually take your advice. So I'm going to switch my camera on.
Yes, fantastic.
Yeah, I had to get that virtual background going. So thank you again, Sam, and thank you for everyone in the audience who asked those questions. If anyone has any last questions, we've got time for one last question before we wrap up today's session.
I'm looking at the Q&A button.
Yeah.
So,
All right, Sam, I guess our audience has asked all their questions so far, and I guess we've got your information as well in case anyone wants to reach out to you post the session. Thank you again. And as for the audience, we do have another session lined up in roughly 30 minutes, which starts at 12. We will be connecting with Mr. Manish Sadhu, Director of Human Resources Atlantis, so do stay tuned. Thank you again.
One final comment to anybody. Any of you who are in businesses which involve software, so that you have your own software, if you want to inquire as to how you integrate Zoom into that, if you're a customer service person or even a restaurant and you want to talk to your clients when they make an order, so you want when they, if you're Zomato and you want to press Zomato and see a video screen coming up in front of you, particularly integration of Zoom into applications is something we're super interested in, so do reach out.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.